December 23, 1944. Amidst the frozen hell of Bastogne, a lone radio operator hunched over his flickering set. Thousands of American paratroopers were encircled, their survival dependent on a single, desperate message. His frantic Morse code, a blur of dots and dashes, was their last hope against overwhelming odds, poised to change the course of a brutal siege. To understand how it happened, we must go back to the autumn of 1944, a period marked by a cautious optimism that permeated the Allied ranks. After the successful D-Day landings and the rapid liberation of France, the Allied armies were pushing relentlessly eastward, believing the end of the war in Europe was within sight. German forces, seemingly in disarray, were retreating on all fronts, and the Allied High Command began to plan for the final push into Germany. However, this sense of impending victory masked a dangerous underestimation of the enemy's capacity for a desperate last-ditch effort. Adolf Hitler, refusing to accept defeat, conceived a daring and audacious plan. A massive counter-offensive through the heavily forested and seemingly impassable Ardennes region of Belgium and Luxembourg. His objective was to split the Allied lines, capture the vital port of Antwerp, and force a separate peace with the Western Allies, thereby allowing Germany to concentrate its remaining strength against the Soviet Union. This bold gamble, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, would plunge the Western Front into one of its most brutal and pivotal engagements. The strategic importance of Bastogne, a small Belgian town nestled at a crossroads of 7 major roads, became acutely apparent as the German offensive gained momentum. Its capture was crucial for the German advance, as it controlled the primary routes necessary for their armored divisions to reach Antwerp. Recognizing this, the Allied command hastily diverted the 101st Airborne Division, the renowned Screaming Eagles, to defend Bastogne. These elite paratroopers, fresh from intense fighting in Normandy and Market Garden, arrived just as the German panzers and infantry began their relentless assault, effectively encircling the town. What ensued was a desperate and brutal siege, a stand against a numerically superior and well-equipped enemy. The paratroopers, lightly armed and quickly cut off from resupply, faced not only the relentless German attacks, but also the unforgiving elements, sub-zero temperatures, heavy snow, and thick fog. Their supplies dwindled rapidly, and constant artillery bombardment turned the town into a frozen, shattered landscape. Communication with the outside world, particularly with General Patton's Third Army, became their most critical lifeline, a fragile thread connecting them to potential relief and desperately needed air support. German forces, however, were acutely aware of this vulnerability and employed sophisticated electronic warfare tactics, jamming frequencies and disrupting signals, turning the airwaves into a cacophony of static and false transmissions. The challenge was immense: how to pierce through this electronic fog and coordinate the desperately needed air support and supply drops that could turn the tide of the battle and ensure the survival of the besieged division. At the heart of this desperate communication struggle was Sergeant Jack Wier, a radio operator assigned to the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment, a component of the 101st Airborne Division. Wier was not a frontline combat soldier in the traditional sense, engaging in direct firefights, but his role was no less critical and arguably, in this specific context, even more vital. He was a quiet, unassuming man whose demeanor belied an extraordinary talent, an almost preternatural ability to manipulate the airwaves and coax signals through impossible conditions. Before the crucible of Bastogne, Wier had already earned a formidable reputation for his uncanny skill. His fingers danced across the Morse code key with a speed and precision that few could match, transforming the complex language of dots and dashes into a seamless flow of information. He was known for his unwavering focus, his remarkable calm under the most intense pressure, and his relentless, almost obsessive determination to get the message through, regardless of the obstacles, whether natural or man-made. This unassuming sergeant, with his specialized equipment and unparalleled expertise, would soon become the indispensable linchpin of the entire defense, his unique talent serving as the sole bridge between the thousands of besieged paratroopers and their only hope for salvation. Jack Wier's journey to becoming a pivotal figure in the Battle of the Bulge began far from the brutal, snow-covered battlefields of Europe in the quiet, unassuming towns of America. Born in a small Midwestern community, Wier was drawn to the intricate world of radio technology from a remarkably young age. He spent countless hours in his youth, often in solitude, tinkering with homemade crystal sets and rudimentary transmitters, utterly fascinated by the invisible waves that carried voices and signals across vast, seemingly impossible distances. This early, almost obsessive passion for electronics and communication laid the crucial foundation for his future military career. When the United States was irrevocably drawn into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Wier, like millions of other young men across the nation, answered the urgent call to duty. His innate aptitude for electronics, coupled with his natural dexterity and keen intellect, quickly marked him as an ideal candidate for a radio operator, a role that was becoming increasingly vital in modern warfare. He underwent rigorous and specialized training, mastering the demanding art of Morse code, a complex language of clicks and pauses that required not only absolute precision and unwavering concentration, but also an almost intuitive understanding of rhythm and timing. He learned to distinguish the faintest signals from overwhelming static, to perform emergency repairs on his equipment under duress, and perhaps most importantly, to maintain an unshakable composure in the face of chaos and extreme pressure. This was not merely a technical skill, it was an art form, a delicate and intricate dance between man and machine, where every single dot and dash carried immense weight and potential consequence. His instructors at radio school quickly recognized his exceptional talent, noting his unparalleled speed, his remarkable accuracy, and an almost intuitive understanding of radio propagation and atmospheric conditions. He was not just transmitting messages, he was, in essence, coaxing them into existence, forcing them through the ether with sheer will and expertise. Wier's early combat experiences further honed his already formidable abilities, transforming him from a highly skilled technician into a seasoned and indispensable wartime operator. He served in various capacities throughout the European theater, often operating just behind the front lines, establishing and meticulously maintaining vital communication links for advancing infantry units. He saw intense action during the Normandy campaign, where the sheer scale of the D-Day invasion and the constant ferocious German counterattacks tested every aspect of Allied logistics and communication to their absolute limits. Later, during Operation Market Garden, the ambitious but ultimately ill-fated airborne assault into the Netherlands, Wier experienced firsthand the brutal reality of isolated units fighting desperately for survival against overwhelming odds. In these crucible engagements, he learned to adapt rapidly, to improvise ingeniously, and to push his equipment and himself to their absolute physical and mental limits. It was during this period that he began to develop a personal shorthand, a rapid-fire cadence of Morse code that was almost indecipherable to untrained ears, yet perfectly clear and efficient for his fellow experienced operators. This insane code, as some would later describe it, was born not out of recklessness but from a desperate, urgent need for speed and efficiency in life-or-death situations. It was a profound testament to his unwavering dedication, his deep understanding that every single second saved in transmission could directly translate into lives saved on the ground. These intense and varied experiences forged him into a radio operator of unparalleled skill and resilience, meticulously preparing him for the ultimate test that awaited him in the snow-covered forests and besieged town of the Ardennes, a challenge that would define his legacy. The sudden and brutal German offensive in December 1944 caught the Allied forces completely off guard, shattering the illusion of an imminent victory. The 101st Airborne Division, having been pulled from the front lines for rest and refitting, was hastily deployed to Bastogne, a critical crossroads town. Wier and his radio team were among the first to arrive, quickly establishing their equipment in a makeshift command post within the town. The transition was abrupt and jarring, from a period of relative calm and anticipation of leave to the heart of a desperate, rapidly unfolding battle. As the German encirclement tightened with terrifying speed, the stark reality of their isolation became chillingly clear. Wier, with his profound understanding of communication's vital role, immediately grasped that his radio was not merely a piece of military equipment. It was, in essence, the collective voice of thousands of trapped soldiers, their only fragile link to hope and potential rescue. He understood with absolute clarity that the fate of the entire division, freezing, exhausted and surrounded, rested heavily on his ability to keep that voice alive, to cut through the enemy's electronic stranglehold and the sheer physical barriers of the battlefield. The weight of this responsibility was immense, a silent burden carried by a man whose fingers held the power to connect or condemn. The dilemma facing Sergeant Wier and his fellow communicators at Bastogne was monumental, a complex web of technical challenges, environmental hostilities, and psychological pressures. How could they possibly maintain reliable radio contact when the enemy was not only actively trying to silence them through sophisticated jamming, but also when the very environment conspired against them? German jamming operations were both sophisticated and relentless, turning the airwaves into a chaotic symphony of static, false signals, and piercing interference designed to sow confusion and despair. Compounding this electronic warfare was the brutal winter weather, sub-zero temperatures that froze equipment, heavy snow that buried antennas, and thick fog that severely hampered radio propagation, making even short-range transmissions difficult. Artillery shells constantly rained down on Bastogne, threatening to destroy precious equipment and kill or wound personnel at any moment. The psychological pressure was immense. Every missed message, every garbled transmission, every moment of silence could mean the difference between life and death for thousands of besieged paratroopers. The rules of radio operation under such dire conditions were simple, yet terrifying in their demand. Transmit clearly, transmit quickly, and ensure the message was received no matter the cost, for failure was not an option. It was amidst this suffocating pressure, this crucible of war and winter, that Jack Wier made a series of critical, unconventional decisions, pushing the boundaries of conventional radio operation and demonstrating an almost intuitive mastery of his craft. Recognizing that standard pre-assigned frequencies were heavily jammed and monitored by the Germans, he began to experiment, meticulously scanning the entire radio spectrum for the slightest opening, a momentary lapse in German interference, a fleeting window of opportunity. He wasn't just searching for a clear channel, he was hunting for a whisper in a hurricane, a needle in an electronic haystack. His fingers, already legendary for their speed and precision, moved with an almost frantic urgency across the Morse key, sending messages at a pace that few other operators could even decode, let alone transmit with accuracy. This was his insane code in full effect, a unique blend of rapid-fire transmission, unconventional frequency hopping, and an almost intuitive understanding of the radio's capabilities and limitations under extreme stress. He improvised constantly, using every trick he had learned from years of experience and inventing new ones on the fly, driven by the unwavering knowledge that every second saved in transmission could mean lives saved on the ground. Wier's actions in the cramped, freezing radio bunker were a testament to human resilience and unwavering dedication. Hunched over his SCR-284 radio set, often without sleep for days, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the dials, he became the indispensable conduit of hope for the entire division. The bunker itself was a cramped, dimly lit space, the air thick with the smell of damp earth, stale cigarette smoke and the pervasive scent of fear. Outside, the constant concussive thud of German artillery shells shook the very ground, a grim and incessant reminder of their precarious situation. Inside, however, Wier's focus was absolute, a singular point of concentration amidst the chaos. He would meticulously transmit vital intelligence from the front lines, precise enemy positions, detailed troop movements, urgent requests for medical evacuation of the wounded, and then with equal intensity and patience, listen for the faint, often distorted replies from Allied forces beyond the perimeter. His rapid Morse code, a staccato rhythm against the terrifying backdrop of war, cut through the static and interference, a beacon of communication. He developed a unique, almost rhythmic pattern of transmission, a personal signature that friendly operators learned to recognize and trust amidst the overwhelming noise. He wasn't just sending data, he was conveying urgency, determination, and the sheer will to survive. He coordinated critical airdrops of ammunition, food and medical supplies, guiding C-47 pilots through treacherous weather and enemy flak with precise instructions. He relayed accurate coordinates for Allied artillery to target German positions, turning the tide of localized skirmishes and saving countless lives. Each successful transmission was a small but profound victory, a defiant act against the overwhelming might of the enemy, a testament to the power of a single, determined individual. After hours of relentless effort, pushing his equipment and his own physical and mental endurance to the absolute breaking point, Wier finally achieved what seemed impossible. He broke through the German jamming with a sustained, clear signal. A message painstakingly transmitted and meticulously received confirmed that Allied relief forces, specifically General Patton's Third Army, were indeed on their way, and that critical air supply drops were being coordinated with unprecedented urgency. The immediate result of this breakthrough was a palpable surge of desperate hope that permeated throughout the besieged perimeter of Bastogne. The news, though still precarious and fraught with danger, ignited a renewed and fierce fighting spirit among the exhausted, freezing and beleaguered paratroopers, providing a powerful psychological boost that was as vital as any incoming ammunition or medical supplies. It was a turning point, a moment when the tide of despair began to recede, replaced by the fierce resolve of men who knew help was coming. Sergeant Wier's tireless and ingenious efforts in maintaining communication proved to be absolutely critical to the successful defense of Bastogne, a pivotal moment in the Battle of the Bulge. His remarkable ability to pierce through the relentless German jamming and overcome the brutal winter conditions ensured that the besieged 101st Airborne Division was never truly isolated, despite being completely surrounded. He meticulously coordinated the precise timing and drop zones for vital air supply missions, guiding C-47 transport planes through thick fog, blinding snow, and intense enemy flak to deliver desperately needed ammunition, crucial medical supplies, and, perhaps most importantly, warm clothing and food. Without these continuous, albeit dangerous, resupplies, the paratroopers, already suffering severely from frostbite, exhaustion, and dwindling morale, would have been utterly unable to sustain their defense against the overwhelming German onslaught. Furthermore, Wier's accurate and timely relay of German positions, troop movements, and attack vectors allowed Allied artillery units positioned outside the perimeter to provide incredibly effective counter-battery fire, disrupting enemy assaults, inflicting heavy casualties, and buying precious time for the defenders. His communications were instrumental in guiding the spearhead of General Patton's Third Army, which, after a heroic push, eventually broke through the German lines and relieved Bastogne, preventing what could have been a catastrophic defeat for the Allies and a significant turning point for the Axis. His insane code was not just a technical marvel, it was the lifeline that kept thousands of soldiers alive and fighting, directly contributing to one of the most iconic and heroic stands of World War II, a testament to the power of communication in warfare. The historical impact of the Battle of the Bulge, and specifically the heroic defense of Bastogne, cannot be overstated in the broader context of World War II. It represented Adolf Hitler's last major offensive on the Western Front, a desperate and audacious gamble that, had it succeeded in its objectives, could have prolonged the war significantly, potentially altering its final outcome. The unwavering stand of the 101st Airborne Division, a testament to their courage and resilience, was profoundly enabled and sustained by the relentless and ingenious communication efforts of individuals like Jack Wier. Their ability to hold Bastogne blunted the German advance, disrupted their timetable, and ultimately led to their decisive defeat in the Ardennes, severely depleting Germany's remaining military resources. Wier's actions exemplified the profound ingenuity, unwavering courage, and sheer determination of the American soldier, particularly those operating in the often overlooked support roles, whose specialized skills had monumental and far-reaching consequences. While frontline heroes often receive the most prominent accolades and recognition for their valor, The unsung heroes of communication, logistics, and technical support were equally, if not more, vital to the overall war effort. Wier's story serves as a powerful and enduring reminder that victory in modern warfare is a complex tapestry woven from countless individual acts of bravery, expertise, and sacrifice, from the rifleman enduring the brutal conditions in the foxhole to the radio operator battling static and jamming in a freezing, besieged bunker. His contribution, though perhaps less visible than a direct combat engagement, was undeniably a decisive factor in preventing the collapse of the Allied line and ultimately turning the tide of a critical battle that could have had devastating repercussions for the entire Allied war effort. After the war concluded, Jack Wier, like countless other veterans, quietly transitioned back to a civilian life that often struggled to fully comprehend the profound intensity and unique experiences of his wartime service. He carried with him the quiet, understated pride of knowing the absolutely vital role he had played in the defense of Bastogne, a memory that would forever be etched into his being. However, he also carried the indelible, often unspoken memories of the siege itself, the constant fear, the freezing cold, the relentless pressure, and the immense responsibility that had rested upon his shoulders. He continued to work with electronics, a field that had not only defined his wartime service, but also remained a lifelong passion. Yet the life-or-death urgency and the monumental stakes of his daily tasks during the war were thankfully replaced by the more mundane, albeit still important, routines of peacetime work and family life. He was a man who had faced the ultimate test of skill, nerve, and endurance, and had emerged victorious, not with a weapon in hand, but with the profound power of communication as his primary tool. His story, though perhaps not always widely publicized or celebrated in popular narratives, became a testament within military circles and among those who understood the intricacies of wartime operations to the extraordinary and often overlooked impact a single dedicated individual can have in the most dire and desperate circumstances imaginable. His quiet heroism resonated deeply with those who knew the true cost of victory. The true legacy of Sergeant John R. Jack Wier and his insane code is a profound and enduring testament to the indomitable power of human ingenuity, unwavering resolve, and the critical importance of communication in the face of overwhelming adversity. It serves as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest and most desperate moments of conflict, when all hope seems lost and the odds appear insurmountable, the dedication and specialized skill of a single individual, combined with an unbreakable spirit, can forge a path to salvation and fundamentally alter the course of events. His relentless pursuit of connection, cutting through the deafening chaos of battle, the insidious jamming of the enemy, and the chilling silence of isolation, directly contributed to saving the lives of thousands of soldiers. His actions underscored a fundamental and timeless truth, that true strength often lies not solely in brute force or numerical superiority, but in the ability to communicate effectively, to coordinate seamlessly, and, most importantly, to absolutely refuse to surrender hope, even when confronted with the most dire circumstances.